PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
She just goes a little mad sometimes.
Do you ever feel like you're normal and the rest of the world has lost its collective mind?
Put your helmet on. We'll be reaching speeds of 3.
Do you find people saying this to you a lot?
Are you totally deranged?
Are you looking for a looking glass to pass through?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Or looking for a rabbit hole to fall down?
Who could think of a better punishment, really? Everything's the same here, it's just a little worse.
Guess what?
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
You've found it. Welcome to Platinum Rose's Garden.
Hello, my darlings. This is Platinum Rose Lady welcoming you to Platinum Rose's Garden on Sunday, April 15th, 2018. Happy Tax Day! Holy fuck, that sounds terrible. That's... Oh gosh, that really sounds bad. That is not a good way to introduce a show, but we don't have the budget for like a big song and dance number. So, you know, and it's the whole podcast thing and you can't see me. So, I actually should have done that in a John Cena voice, I suppose. But anyway, I'm very, very sorry. I have been a very bad Supernatural host. I have not been around for a little while. I'm super duper sorry. Real life occasionally has a way of kicking you about like a soccer ball. So it is what it is. So I was gone, but now I'm back. As I'm recording this, I feel really bad for some parts of the country, boy. Some places are getting their ass kicked with snow. I've heard like, you know, other like more in the center of the country and stuff like that. And I feel really bad about that. And I also feel like better you than me. Sorry. Oh gosh, that was really awful. Okay. You know what? Enough of this foolishness as opposed to my usual foolishness. We're going to jump right into the triple header Supernatural episode recap.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
Season 13, episode 16 of Supernatural, ScoobyNatural. We don't even get a then for this episode. We don't even get a now for this episode. We just go. The beginning of the episode is, Sam and Dean in what looks to be some sort of a pawn shop fighting a giant plushie figure that looks like a dinosaur. Oh, this is starting off well. They proceed to douse it in holy oil and set it ablaze. As it turns out, it was a cursed item. There was actually nobody in it, and the whole thing explodes. Why do I have the feeling that a lot of people who had to suffer through Barney the Dinosaur in the 90s just pointed at the TV and cackled insanely? Or was that just me? That might have been just me. As it does turn out, they were in a pawn shop and they get a gift from the grateful owner of the shop. The guy's all like, oh, you know, take anything you want for helping me out. And Sam, of course, being Sam, is all like, no, that's okay. We just do this because we're awesome and heroic and all that. But Dean's like, anything? Dean's obviously got his eye on something. As it turns out, what the something is a large screen television, which the guys wind up taking out to baby as they're struggling with it, to the sort of amusement of the shop owner and the shop owner's friend, a guy named Jay. So they're still trying to find a way to, you know, get the information they need to open the portal to get their mom and Jack home, but right now they're trying to just deal with what they've just dealt with, i.e. the cursed plushy dinosaur figure because that's unusual. And, for people like them who deal with rougarous and demons and, the end of the world on more than one occasion, a giant rampaging stuffy dinosaur, that's pretty fucking weird. Sam can't find any information about it though, and he's really stumped and can't find anything about a cursed object flat out attacking people like the dinosaur stuff he did. Dean's all like, yeah, great, whatever, come here. And Dean takes him to a room that he's made up in the bunker that he's calling a Dean cave. It's a man cave, beer and foosball and, comfy chairs and the, obviously the thing that ties the whole room together, this new television set. Sam's like, when did you have time to do this? And Dean's basically like, you make time when it's important. I'm like, that's not an answer. But, Dean goes to try the TV for the first time. The thing is, he turns it on, and all of a sudden things get extremely strange because the TV starts with this kind of weird, swirly purple thing, and this beam shoots out, hits both the Winchesters, and the next thing they know, they're sucked into another dimension, and they realize this other dimension is an animated dimension, and they're both cartoons, which I'm sure is a bit of a freak out moment. They're here, the Impala's here, and they've wound up, not only are they in a cartoon universe, they are in a specific cartoon universe. They are in the cartoon universe of Scooby-Doo, because in front of them is also the Mystery Machine at a malt shop. Because, I would have preferred, Batman the Animated Series, or Cutie Honey, or something like that, but nobody asked my opinion. The guys go into after some animated credits, the guys go into the malt shop, and they meet the Scooby Gang, Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and of course, Scooby-Doo. And Dean is over the fucking moon about this. He is really super majorly excited about this. Sam, not so much. Sam seems a little bit nonplussed about the whole deal. Dean's whole thing is that what they need to do is their thinking, Dean's thinking, is that what needs to happen is that the last time they were zapped into a television universe by the trickster, aka Gabriel, aka my maybe dad, I don't know, that what they had to do to get out of it was play along. I seem to remember Dean being less than happy about playing along at that time, but he's more than happy to play along this time, because one thing that this universe has that the other universe didn't have is Daphne. And Dean's got a bit of a thing for Daphne. I'm not judging that. I am not judging that. My first crush was Mark from Battle of the Planets, which was an anime, and so I am not judging. I am not judging at all. Although I would like to say that this Daphne looks a lot curvier than the Daphne that I remember from Scooby-Doo. Granted, I haven't watched Scooby-Doo for a long time, but I would have remembered them hips. Anyway, so they introduce themselves to the gang, and it's, they're like, oh, well, we solve mysteries too, and all this stuff like that, and they find out that Scooby has been named in a very wealthy man's will because he had saved the man from drowning all these years ago. And once again, Dean is over the moon because he remembers this is the plot of the very first episode of Scooby-Doo. So they ask if they can tag along, and the gang says, sure, that's fine. When they go outside, now, for some reason, other than the fact that obviously Fred and Daphne are a couple, or at least close to a couple on the show, kind of, I think. Fred is in Dean's sights as someone to, best. He's completely, doing the whole, I'm a better everything than you when it comes to Fred, even though, he makes fun of Fred's ascot, not to Fred's face, but everyone gets in their respective vehicles, and Dean challenges Fred to a race, and Fred swallows the bait on that because I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was really awful, and I really, honest to blog, shouldn't say things like that. But men, what is it? Why do you have this competition thing? Why? Why is everything a fucking pissing contest with you? I don't get it. I love you, but you make me crazy. Needless to say, the Mystery Machine actually kicks baby's ass, and Dean is not fucking happy. After the guys drive away, though, we see a figure emerge into the parking lot of the malt shop that looks kind of familiar from the back, anyway. So the guys head to this house, which looks like the house in the first episode of Scooby-Doo, this big, towering, crumbling mansion, sort of furnished in early Dracula kind of place. A couple of, new coat of paint, a couple of, lace curtains. It might look a little bit less like, Vampire's summer house or something. Everyone goes inside for the reading of the will via a record. What's a record, Daddy? Read, presided over by the lawyer for the decedent. The lawyer who is like this totally creepy lawyer dude that should just have a neon arrow pointing down to him saying, he's the bad guy. So anyway, the reading of the will goes thusly. That all of the people, the man's relatives and Scooby, will all get a share of the man's money if they stay in the house overnight. Sounds easy, right? Well, actually, no, because as the decedent mentions on the record, the house is haunted. Whoops. So, as it turns out, though, the house is haunted by a ghost that is like a lot more violent than it turns out your average ghost would be. As one of the cousins is dead. He winds up being stabbed in the back while he's cleaning up, brushing his teeth and stuff. And the thing is, the ghost, when we see the ghost the first time, it looks like your typical scary-looking, not scary-looking, but not scary-looking Scooby-Doo ghost. And then it looks like a very real, frightening, what-the-fuck ghost. And when the gang go and find the guy, he's dead. Not missing, dead. Dead as in blood dead and knife protruding from the back dead. And all of this, I need to stress again, is in a cartoon. Now, for some of us who grew up watching anime, because we were raised right, this is like, okay, that's different. It's not a complete earth-shattering moment, but Sam and Dee are definitely like, wait a minute, this is obviously not the way things are supposed to go. As it turns out, the mysterious figure makes an appearance at the house, and it turns out that it's Castiel. He had come back to the bunker, to the Batcave, and had returning from Syria with fruit from the Tree of Life, or a Tree of Life. No, I suppose the Tree of Life would be a better way to put it. He does mention that the tree was surrounded by and guarded by a group, coven. I don't know how to word this, gaggle of jinn, and he killed most of them, but he does think he may be married to their queen. Well, gosh, Castiel, if you send us the email for the registry, we'll, totally hook you up with some his and her towels and stuff. He goes into the Dean cave and sees Sam and Dean on the TV and wound up getting zapped in there and as well, and followed them to this house. He mentions that what he saw on the TV were purple sparks and this purple light. And Sam and Dean realized that when they remember that when they were dealing with the giant murderous plushie, that's got to be the weirdest sentence I've used all damn weekend. When they were dealing with the plushie back at the pawn shop, when they destroyed it, there were purple sparks there as well. So we're dealing with something that may, it's all seems to be connected somehow back to that pawn shop. So they start searching the house by darkness, and the ghost attacks again, and they manage to get one of the doors open and find the lawyer who has been murdered and dismembered. Dean remarks how he thinks he's going to be sick, and this is obviously changing the script of everything that, the Scooby Gang would normally deal with. And Sam and Dean know that, and they're wondering if their presence there is what's making things happen this way. I mean, people don't really die in Scooby-Doo, and certainly not like that. So we also know a few other things. And besides the fact that Dean is really, really, really tack about 15 more reallys on there, trying to get Daphne to notice him short of just unzipping, that Velma is seriously crushing on Sam, like constantly bringing up, that he's so tall and that he's, got these big broad shoulders, although she does think that he's kind of dumb, which I was like, okay, what? But I was more like, she's like talking about him and talking about like, his shoulder, like I said, his shoulders and all this stuff like that. And I'm going, ha 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 ha, back up. Sorry about that. Yeah, Samazons get a little grouchy sometimes when you start sniffing around our territory. Everybody splits up to search because Scooby-Doo. And Sam gets paired up with Velma. And Velma's whole thing is that she doesn't believe that it's a ghost because it never is a ghost. Although I would like to bring up, side note, that in the Scooby-Doo cartoons around the 80s, I think, they started having the Scooby Gang deal with actual occult stuff. It was like, go to rip off a mask and be like, oh wait, that's a real monster. Oh crap. Stuff like that. But obviously this isn't that universe. Because Velma's whole thing is that this isn't real. This, the ghost and all the attacks and stuff, it's not real. And Sam, sweet, wonderful, adorable Sam, trying to get Velma to understand the true danger of what they're going through, tells her the truth, tells her that there are monsters and demons and vampires and all kinds of stuff, out there, and that they can kill you. And she doesn't believe anything that he's saying. The thing is, while they're in the attic, they do notice one thing that both of them notice for different reasons. And that one thing is a toy chest. The toy chest has no dust on it. Everything else in the attic is, covered with a thin layer of dust because, disuse and all that. But the toys don't have any dust on them, but they do have ectoplasm on them, which Velma again writes off as not real. Dean, Daphne, and Fred, because Fred tagged along, because of course, trigger a trapdoor that gets them sent down to the basement. When everybody reunites, the ghost winds up attacking, and the Scooby Gang get pretty badly dinged up. People get thrown around and tossed around, and Shaggy takes a header out the window. It's Sam and Dean to the rescue by striking at the ghost with iron candlesticks, and of course, iron plus ghost equals vanishing ghost. Shaggy almost gets killed in the fall, but Scooby jumps out the window to save him, and Castiel jumps out the window to save Scooby. They all manage to land in a tree and fall to the ground. Somehow, Shaggy manages to not land on his head, but he does break his arm. And the guys tell the Scooby Gang the actual truth, the whole real truth. And the Scooby Gang doesn't take it well at all. Fred starts ranting about, they've been, hunting after crooked real estate developers while they could have been, trying to chase down Dracula, that his life is meaningless. Daphne goes into an existential crisis about, if, is there heaven and hell, and, asking about, is she going to go to hell? And it's really scary watching all of these characters that you know and love break down like that. And Sam and Dean kind of realize, oh man, we really, really shouldn't have done that. And they tell them that, what they're doing, what they do, that's important too. That, they're not dealing with monsters and things like that in what they do, but they help people, they've helped people fight against the monsters that are in human skin, the monsters that hurt people and try and cheat people and trick people and stuff like that. And Sam makes a remark that makes them real, and then Dean turns around and is like, you watch the show too. And Sam has to kind of agree with that. And Dean actually brings up a really good point. He says, you guys have all jumped into danger with no thought for yourselves. You're heroes, and together we're going to take down this phantom. And that makes the gang realize that, yeah, what they do is important. It's different from what Sam and Dean do, but it's still important. So they wind up putting together your typical Scooby-Doo trap. Another way to say really friggin' convoluted. But it has, supernatural undertones to it. Iron chains, stuff like that. And like most Scooby-Doo episodes, Plan A doesn't work. Ends up with Scooby, Castiel, and Shaggy in a washing machine. Ow. That is not comfortable. I would not think that would be comfortable at all. Scooby's a Great Dane, Shaggy's pretty tall, and Castiel is not a small man. That is cramped, my friends. That is cramped. The thing is, Plan A wasn't supposed to work there because that means there was Plan B, and Plan B, surprise, does work. And it ends up with the phantom, the ghost, being trapped in a ring of salt so that it can't escape. Because it's trapped, the Winchesters command the ghost to show what it really is, because they know it's not really a ghost like the ghost that it looks like, And it turns out that the ghost is actually the ghost of a child. It's a little boy. He tells them that he doesn't want to do the things that he's doing, that he's doing them because he can't help it. He's being held hostage, for lack of a better term, by the bad man who turns out to be Jay, the friend of the pawn shop owner. What the little boy is attached to is a penknife. It's his dad's penknife. And that because he can't move on, he gets angry and attacks people. We see in a flashback scene that when Sam and Dean were moving the TV out of the store, Jay slipped the penknife, which had been in the dinosaur plushie. He slipped it out of the plushie and slipped it into one of the crevices in the TV, which is how the cursed object got transferred, because he was trying to get the Winchesters out of the way. Dean asks the little boy, and, can he get them home? And he says that, he can, and that if the little boy can get them back, they'll destroy the pocket knife and the little boy can move on. The Winchesters look and see that the Scooby Gang is still pretty upset about the whole ghost thing and everything like that. And they realize that they need to do the right thing. And the right thing here is putting everything back the way that it should be. In the fact that, in the Scooby universe, at least at that time, there were no ghosts. It was always people in, costumes trying some kind of a scam. So they opened the door and let the Scooby Gang see that the Phantom, they unmask the Phantom, and it's the lawyer. Although we all know it's not really the lawyer, it's the little boy. Pretending, changing himself to look like he's the lawyer. So it makes it, to the Scooby Gang, it's like everything really was all, fake supernatural stuff. It wasn't, none of it's real, and they're all like convinced that what they're doing is the right way to do things. Dean finds a suitcase full of money, and the money that was supposed to be from the inheritance that Scooby was staying at the house for, it turns out that it's just like in the TV show. It's worthless. It's a suitcase of money. Yes, it's $1 million. Yes, but it's a suitcase full of $1 million worth of Confederate money. And while you might be able to get something from that from a Civil War collector, I don't think you'd get $1 million for it. Castiel touches Shaggy's arm and surreptitiously heals it, and Shaggy's like, "Oh, I guess I didn't break it after all." They say they have to go, and Dean tries to get a goodbye kiss from Daphne, and that doesn't happen. Castiel winds up giving both Shaggy and Scooby a really nice hug, and saying how important they are, that the fact that they bring laughter to dangerous situations that's an important thing that he never thought of before, how valuable someone like that can be. Velma, when they say goodbye, Velma shakes Sam's hand and then yanks him forward, has him in a dip, which, considering the fact that Velma must be, a lot stronger than I thought, and winds up giving Sam a very passionate kiss on the mouth, and I start feeling the need to force choke somebody. I really come to the dark side. We've got cookies. The three of them go back to we see them back in the Batcave, and they're there with the little ghost boy, and the ghost boy sends them back to the Batcave, to the Dean room, the Dean cave, and they talk about, that was completely nuts, what they went through. Dean takes a sledgehammer and proceeds to go Triple H all over the television, just smashes the crap out of it. They get the pocket knife out of the television, and Sam puts it on a tray and torches it with a blowtorch, and the little boy's spirit moves on. We then go back to the pawn shop, and the pawn shop owner, whose name is Alan, is about to sign some papers that will sell his business at a very cheap price to Jay. The Winchesters and Castiel show up and tell him not to sign it, and they explain what Jay's scheme has been all this time. That Jay has been sicking the ghost onto the people that he wants to get their business, so he would plant the cursed object in their shop, the ghost would run amok, and then the person would be so frightened they would sell their business to Jay at a much lower price. And Castiel shows that the knife has been destroyed and that the little boy's spirit is now free. Jay, who is a total slimeball looking guy anyway, pretty much is like, no one's going to believe your story about that. And the Winchesters are like, no, they're not, but they're pretty much going to, but the cops do look at tax evasion in a dim light. As it turns out, they checked they hacked into Jay's finances and sent his information to the police. And as Dean brings up, it worked for Capone, it'll work for you. I mean, and Jay is arrested on tax evasion. When they're outside, as Jay's being loaded into a car, he actually does the "I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids" line, and I'm like, really? We're gonna go there? All right. You be you, buddy. And Dean does a Scooby-Doo impression, and Castiel brings up that he's not a talking dog, and the episode ends. I have to be honest. I have to be brutally honest with you guys. And Ever since I heard about this episode, I was nervous. I was very, very extremely nervous about this episode. Simply because it was getting a lot of press and a lot of attention. And that's obviously a good thing. I mean, you can't fault attention. Attention is a good thing. But what bothered me was I was like, Supernatural's been on the air. This is their 13th season. They've had some amazing storylines and awesome standalone episodes. And this is what finally makes you people pay attention? Them having a crossover with a cartoon? Really? And I don't know, that just irritated me. It irritated me, it stuck in my craw, and it flat out bothered me. But ScoobyNatural was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this episode a lot. The artwork was fantastic. And it was really enjoyable. I mean, the whole Velma crushing on Sam thing was a little bit like, it's, sorry, can't help it. Sam is on, little hang up there. But I did like it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. So I suppose that's a good thing. I give ScoobyNatural 4 bouquets out of 5. And that takes us directly into our next episode, season 13, episode 17, The Thing. The Thing actually had a then segment, which is nice. The segment was dealing with the men of letters, who they are and what they do or did. The fact that Arthur Ketch is now working for Asmodeus, and that Gabriel has been Asmodeus's captive for quite a long while, and Gabriel's lips have also been sewn shut. And I'm just sitting there watching that, and my heart is breaking and shattering into little red pieces all over the floor. And now we are at now. And now, as it turns out, is not now. It's actually then. Way then. Ow. That hurt. It is Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Yay! Right down the road from me. And it is 1925. We see a ritual being performed with a young woman on a stone tablet, and she does not want to be there, and I don't really blame her. These people, whatever they're doing, look to be some kind of a summoning ritual. They've got this young woman tied up and gagged, and they're wearing robes, and they're chanting, and it all looks really fucking ominous. It also looks a lot like their symbol looks a lot like the symbol for the men of letters, but not. There's an eye in the middle that's not, the drawing of an eye that does, it's not quite right. So the chanting goes on, and the person leading the chants holds up this amulet, talisman, however you want to call it, this purple stone, which is really pretty. And as they're chanting, this opening appears in the ceiling, this crack, and we start seeing tentacles come down from the ceiling and hover over this young woman. And I've seen enough anime, I know where this is going. And we get the credits before we actually get any penetration. And we get, so like I said, we get the credits. And we come back from the credits, and we are at the Bat Cave in Lebanon, Kansas. Sam is resting. Well, he's asleep. Poor darling. On one of the tables, like, slumped over the table, doing research and stuff, obviously trying to find a way to get the rest of the ingredients they need to open the rift to get their mom back, and Jack. Poor darling. So he's unconscious, and Dean is being an annoying big brother by putting Post-it notes on Sam's back. He has to stop at one point because Sam almost wakes up from when he's touching him, and they're all just stupid, silly things because Dean's being a brat. Dean is very good at being a brat. Actually, both Winchester brothers are very good at being brats when they want to be. I'm not saying it wasn't funny. I'm just saying he was being a brat. When Sam wakes up, he's been trying to find some information about the Seal of Solomon, which is what they need, another ingredient they need to open the portal. And he found a little bit of material, something about a gem from the stars, which might be like a meteor or something like that. And they find out about the brothers go and check the Men of Letter archives for research and more research and still more research. It's rather tedious and boring work, even for Sam, I think, who loves to read. He finds the notes. Sam goes in the bathroom or passes by a room with a mirror in it and sees the notes on his back and is like, damn it. But it turns out Dean actually found something in his research about the Men of Letters finding Solomon's treasure, and that it's being kept at a smaller Men of Letters annex, for lack of a better word, in Providence, Rhode Island. During which Dean brings up the whole Jinkies reference. Dean is obviously still high from the whole Scooby-Doo adventure. And that's nice, I guess. I mean, he didn't get anywhere with Daphne. I mean, Sam did get kissed by Velma. Damn it all to fucking... Never mind, I'm alright. Jealous? Who's jealous? I'm not jealous. The Rhode Island location, when they arrive, it looks pretty deserted, but Sam manages to find a way in from a manhole cover looking thing, and using the key that will get them into any other Men of Letters, building, and they drop in, literally, down through this manhole cover deal, and the lights work, sort of, and the place is like a lot less organized than the bunker in Kansas. It almost kind of looks like people left it in a hurry. Dean finds some photos on a table, and one of the photos is of a young woman, and we realize it's the young woman from the beginning of the show. On the back of the note, it gives her name as Sandy Porter and the year. Sam finds a file about Solomon and about the treasure and all that stuff like that when the brothers hear a noise, and they, it sounds like somebody yelling, and they find this woman, Sandy Porter. They find her right where she was, on this table, bound, and she doesn't look the slightest bit different. She looks exactly like she did in 1925. The brothers rescue her from, they're needless to say surprised that she's here, alive, and doesn't look a day over the day she, disappeared in the 20s. We cut back to the asylum in Fall River, Massachusetts, where Asmodeus has made his base. It turns out Arthur Ketch has been summoned by Asmodeus, but now that he's been summoned, he's being told to wait. So he has to sit and wait his turn. The brothers take Sandy from the bunker and try to, get her up to speed on, this is a car, this is what cars look like now, this is a phone, let's get everything in the world on it, that kind of a thing. And Sandy's a lot, she comes off more like she's in shock than anything else. She's not screaming her head off or anything like that. Ketch, tired of waiting, walks into the Asmodeus's throne room and sees Asmodeus stealing grace from Gabriel through a needle and then injecting the grace into himself. And Gabriel just looks like a beaten dog. He's just looks so broken, and it's killing me. It's completely killing me. And he's still told that, you need to wait until I'm ready to see you. The guys bring, Sandy to a diner, and they sit down to get something to eat and try and figure out what the hell's going on. And it turns out that the person who is the chef, a young man that doesn't talk very much, named Marco, sees the Winchesters and this young woman and gets on the phone with another young woman and says they have a problem. Now the thing is, both of these people have matching tattoos. The tattoo of the Men of Letters symbol with this eye in the middle. Sandy, needless to say, like I said, is having a hard time processing stuff, and she tells Sam and Dean that she was taken by the men of letters back in the 20s. And Dean tells her that she's safe now. She tells them about the ritual that she saw, the light, the portal, and the monster. Sandy is, needless to say, upset at having to remember all this stuff, and goes to the ladies' room, or just leaves. You don't see where she goes, if she goes outside, if she goes to the bathroom. We see Marco in the kitchen pouring some kind of fluid into the food the Winchesters and Sandy had ordered earlier, and grabbing a weapon as well. Asmodeus decides to let Ketch know how they're, he talks with Ketch about the Winchesters and their plan, the whole idea of opening the portal and finding this other universe, and he's not happy that Ketch already knew about the plan. Asmodeus decides to let Ketch know what the lay of the land is from now on, that, you work for me. And when Ketch is basically like, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, I'm gonna bounce, Asmodeus beats the ever-loving shit out of him. And I should be enjoying that. After everything that Ketch has put the Winchester brothers and Mary and their friends through, I should be completely reveling in the fact that Asmodeus is kicking the living shit out of Ketch. But I'm not. I'm completely not. And I don't know if that's I'm telling myself, stop liking Ketch. Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. But I can't help it. Damn it. The Winchesters continue to talk, and Sandy's passed all the tests, holy water, salt, the whole thing. They can't explain why she's, still so young and what the men of letters were doing, because everything that they've known about the American men of letters anyway, they were all about research and not getting your hands dirty and all this stuff like that. Tying up women for sacrifices seems very much not in their ballpark. Sam wants to go back to the annex and try and figure stuff out, but Dean's like, they shouldn't go back together, that they should go back together, that they'll bring Sandy to a motel and teach her how to use the TV, and they'll go back to the annex together. The thing is, they don't leave, because as it turns out, there's some people in robes standing outside. Sam, who eats a little bit of his food, winds up passing out for a little bit because of the drugs in it. And the lights go out, and these figures come into the building and start attacking. Dean gets in a fight with one of them and winds up almost getting killed, but gets saved when Sandy stabs the figure in the back. Sam comes to, because he didn't eat much of his food, but winds up having a hood put over his head, and he's kidnapped by these figures. We see the figures out, they run outside, they're surrounding the diner, and the phone is dead, and it turns out that they can't call the cops because the figures in the robes, they are the cops. So that's obviously not a good thing. Dean makes what looks like some Molotov cocktails and tells Sandy, they took my brother, I'm gonna get him back. Very typical Dean, and it's awesome when he does stuff like that. Sam, who's been taken a little further into the woods, has his hood removed, and it turns out that these two people are siblings. It's Marco from the diner. The woman is his sister Ophelia. As it turns out, this whole mess was caused by their grandfather, Diego. Diego had been a member of the Men of Letters. His name was Diego Avila, and he was a veteran of the First World War and saw, all of the horrors that the First World War entailed. He came back from the war terribly scarred, and his whole plan, along with some of the other people that were this part of the Men of Letters, was to summon a god from another dimension, and that summoning this god would make everything better. Well, as it turned out, they summoned the god, and the god's name is Yokath, and the god, they did the whole ritual and everything like that. The tentacles came down like we saw earlier. We didn't see the after effect of that. Was that one of these tentacles had this opening on it. It slams into Sandy's mouth and possessed her. So this figure that Sam and Dean had been taking around with them, thinking she's this innocent girl, no, she's a god from another dimension. As it turns out, she ate most of the people that summoned her and was bound, and the Men of Letters bound it. They kicked the survivors out of the Men of Letters and closed the annex down, and the family, these two people, their family, have been keeping this god bound and starved all these years so that it won't, go out into the universe and cause all kinds of mayhem and chaos, because all it wants to do, if it's not, as Marco says, if it's not feeding, it's trying to breed. We see Asmodeus still trying to grind Ketch's self-esteem further into the dirt by telling him that he can see inside of him, and that, Ketch puts on this big tough front and says how he wants to, be this, ruthless, cold-hearted SOB, but that's not who he is, that he wants redemption, he wants to be saved. But Asmodeus says that it's too, he can't be. He just needs to accept the fact that he's damned. It's not a very attractive scene at all. It's quiet outside the diner, and one of the young men in the diner is ordered to go out and check to see what's going on. As Sam is told by Marco and Ophelia, if this god eats, shit's gonna get real bad. While he's outside, the young man, Buck, is attacked by Sandy, and this tentacle comes out of her mouth and slams into him and drains him of his energy, his life force, his organs, I don't know. And when Dean comes out of the diner, she turns on him. Ketch, when he's left alone after Asmodeus finishes, being a dick to him, opens Gabriel's cell and literally has to drag Gabriel out to get him to come with him as in a rescue mission. And Ketch kills a couple of demons on the way out for good measure. Sam goes back to the diner, but there's no Dean, but there are a lot of dead bodies outside with these weird-ass robes on. Dean wakes up chained to the table in the Men of Letters annex and learns what Sandy really is, and finds out from Sandy that she intends to use Dean's body as a vessel for her mate Glither, who is another god in this other dimension. Sandy opens the portal, and Sam and the two siblings come in to rescue Dean. They shoot at Sandy, and in the ensuing fight, they get the Seal of Solomon off of Sandy's neck, and her mate's tentacles come down through the portal, grab her, and drag her back up into the portal, and the portal slams shut. And Dean, needless to say, is almost possessed a few times because this tentacle thing keeps grabbing at him while the fighting is going on, but he winds up being unsullied. Yay for that. We see Sam and Dean leaving this annex location with the two siblings. They're given the Seal of Solomon, and Marco tells them that if they want to open this portal, that they're going to need a guide, something on them to get to where they need to go. And Ophelia tells them that the portal is only going to be open for 24 hours. So Sam and Dean get back to the Batcave in Lawrence and find it occupied by Ketch and Gabriel, which they're, needless to say, both stunned to see Gabriel there, with Sam saying, "We saw you die," which, Actually he says, we saw him die. Which actually, no, you didn't. You guys had already left the hotel back in Hammer of the Gods. You and Kali had already left. Gabriel bought you the time to do that. So, anyway, whatever. But they obviously knew somehow that Gabriel was allegedly dead. And Sam says that they're going to need some of Gabriel's grace to open this portal. Gabriel completely freaks out, but Ketch winds up calming him down. Ketch takes out a vial of Gabriel's grace that Asmodeus hadn't mainlined yet and shows it to the Winchesters, puts it on the table along with the Archangel blade. Because Ketch isn't stupid. He tells them that he knows that now that he's, turned his back on him, Asmodeus is going to hunt him down. He wants protection from him. Sam's all ready to toss him out in the cold, but Dean says yes. Dean's attitude is, we can use him. It's not a question of, compassion or anything. Sam very gently cuts through the string or whatever it is that is twine, I don't even know what it is, that that's sewn Gabriel's lips together. It's actually very beautiful. Very sweet scene. Dean tells Sam he's going to go through the portal and he intends to go alone. His whole thing is that one of them has to stay behind to come get him if there's a problem. But Ketch offers to go with Dean. Sam is not happy about any of this. And they do the ritual, and Dean and Ketch leave through the portal, leaving Sam to tend to a weak and obviously exceedingly scarred physically and emotionally Gabriel. And the episode ends. Which leads us to this week's episode, Season 13, Episode 18, Bring 'Em Back Alive. The then is Gabriel, who has been a prisoner of Asmodeus for quite a long time, Mary and Jack, who are stuck in Apocalypse World, and Dean and Ketch, Mr. Ketch, showing up in Apocalypse World trying to rescue them. Oh, by the way, before I forget, the previous episode, The Thing, 4 bouquets out of 5, thought it was really, really cool. And now we are at now. We see Dean and Mr. Ketch exit the rift, and they're in this wintry kind of area. The weather's definitely not the same from what we saw before, so we don't really know how much time has passed. And Dean also isn't sure where they are. Dean says Ketch can go off and do his own thing. He's going to look for his mother and Jack, but Ketch says he wants to come with Dean. He feels like he owes that much to Mary. I'm like, good for you. You could have thought of that before, you fucking dick. But anyway. Dean and Ketch see a group of angels on a bridge executing humans, and the last person that the angels intend to murder is this universe's version of Charlie Bradbury, which of course freaks Dean the fuck out. We come back from credits. It turns out this Charlie is part of the resistance, the fight against Michael, and is going to be taken, instead of being killed, she's going to be taken alive for interrogation. Back in the regular Supernatural universe, Castiel is less than happy with the idea that Dean has gone off into Apocalypse World with Ketch along, trying to get their mother and Jack back. Sam and Castiel they're trying to help Gabriel, come back to himself. And when Sam tries to, get Gabriel to take his grace back by, drinking it, or at least opening his mouth enough to hold it, to absorb it, he's so broken, and it's so sad. It just tears your heart into little tiny pieces. Meanwhile, in heaven, where Lucifer has taken charge, he's really getting irritated with Anael's attitude, because her whole thing is, you're not doing anything you said you were going to do. You're not making heaven a better place for angels. And NAL NAL herself is not happy that Lucifer is just content to sit on the throne of heaven, play solitaire, and just wait for people to come and worship him. Nobody seems to be really happy right now. As it turns out, there's been no news about Jack, and Lucifer is pissed off that he's not getting any respect from the angels like his father would have gotten. And NAL brings up that you're not your father. Your father created everything, you just inherited it. Ouch. Okay. Asmodeus, needless to say, is pissed that Gabriel has escaped. He seems less concerned. Actually, he doesn't seem the slightest bit concerned about Ketch. Over in Apocalypse World, Dean wants to go after Charlie right away, to save her, and Ketch wants to know if this is a personal thing, or, were they in a relationship at something or some point, and Dean doesn't want to talk about it. When he and Ketch lose sight of each other, Dean winds up being shot by a hunter, which is obviously not a good thing. As it turns out, the hunter seems to be selling humans for slave labor. I don't know to whom, to the angels or the demons. I don't know. It wasn't really made clear. When he tries to take Dean into his custody, however, Ketch winds up helping out. And when Dean interrogates the guy, he finds out about some place called the Silo, and Dean repays him by shooting him in the leg. I'm like, hey, buddy, at least he left you alive. He didn't shoot you right between the eyes. Ketch would have totally done that, and I would have shot you right in the nuts. But that's because I have hang-ups. Castiel comes back into Gabriel's room, and the lights are off. He flicks the lights on. The walls are completely covered in Enochian writing. As it turns out, the writing is Gabriel. It's him writing about what happened to him. And as he writes about it, it says that when it looked like he had been killed back in Chariots of the Gods, Lucifer only killed another fake duplicate. It wasn't really Gabriel, obviously. And Gabriel went under, did what Gabriel does. He went undercover. He went to Monte Carlo and, shacked it up with some porn stars until he wound up being caught and delivered to Asmodeus, where he'd been tortured for years. Now, when you think about Gabriel and the uber smart mouth that Gabriel has, what Asmodeus must have done to him to turn him into the broken shell that we saw, that's enough to keep you awake at night. So, back up in heaven, Lucifer, in a new suit, trying to be more like his father, I guess, trying to cut a more dapper figure, decides that he's going to start listening to prayers, and quickly gets bored of that because, as his whole thing is most prayers are just whining and stuff like that. People asking God for help and praying for a sign and things like that. The one thing that does finally interest him, though, is when he hears two priests performing an exorcism. And he makes an appearance. You have an older priest and a younger priest, and they're trying to exorcise a demon from what appears to be a young girl tied to a bed. And Lucifer's like, what are you doing? And the demon's all like, just having some fun. And Lucifer's like, out, get out. The demon smokes out of the girl's body and disappears through a grate. And the priests, naturally, are both kind of like, who are you? And Lucifer is like, I'm Lucifer. The priests, naturally, panic and start flinging holy water at Lucifer and screaming how he's the beast and all this stuff like that. And after putting up with that for a few minutes, Lucifer winds up smiting them and just goes, damn it. I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? Really? I mean, they're priests and yours, Lucifer. Did you think they were going to go, oh, well, hey, thanks. You know, you want to go for a beer? No. You know, it's really... Over in the Apocalypse world, Dean's wound does not look good. It doesn't look like a typical... I mean, it's a bullet wound. It's in his shoulder. It didn't pierce anything major, but the wound is black. The area around it has these vein-like black lines, and Ketch looks extremely worried. Back in the regular Supernatural universe, Castiel's still trying to reach Gabriel, even doing this sort of angel mind meld thing, but it's completely not working. As it turns out, Dean has been poisoned by a Men of Letters poison that hunter had on his bullets. Very nasty stuff. And Ketch gives him the antidote, which doesn't look like it's, you know, a nice feeling thing, because Dean's obviously in more than a little bit of pain. Sam tries his luck at trying to get Gabriel back, saying, you know, at one point saying, you know, I tried to run away too. I didn't have a good relationship with my family either, but this is what I was put here to do. You know, Sam brings up that, you know, everybody, you know, people need Gabriel's help. You know, the universe needs Gabriel's help. His nephew Jack needs his help. And Sam says, Gabriel, I need you. And I was like, what? I was like, wow, I kind of didn't see that one coming. And you know, 9 kajillion people just ran to their computers and like started writing fanfic like crazy. I mean, the Sabriel does exist. I'm not knocking it or anything like that. I'm just saying it does exist. I'm not getting dragged into the whole this should be canon nonsense, because I can't be bothered. The thing is, at first it seems like Gabriel's not responding, but when Sam, in his talk about what Gabriel wrote earlier, brings up the fact that Sam said that they were hookers, Gabriel says porn stars. They were porn stars, Sam. And he looks up at him, and his eyes start to glow this bluish white color. It's more blue, really. And Asmodeus picks up on Gabriel's vibe. I don't know what else you'd call it. It's because he's been injecting himself with so much of Gabriel's grace, he can pick up on that, and that obviously can't be a good thing. Back in the Apocalypse world, it's getting dark, and Dean's getting too weak to walk. Ketch is of the opinion they should try and go back to the rift and regroup, and Dean's not having any of that because he feels like he has to save this version of Charlie, and it's because he couldn't save his version of Charlie. And he talks about how important Charlie was to him, and we see, you know, shots of them hugging, and we see, you know, Charlie's broken, bloody body in a bathtub, and it was really fucking sad. It almost made me cry. I'm like, fuck you, damn you, show, for making me care so hard. And Ketch acknowledges the fact that he has blood on his hands as well. You know, teammates and colleagues and people he couldn't save, but maybe he didn't try as hard as Dean does. His whole thing is, you know, he's going to help Dean rescue Charlie. Maybe it'll give him some redemption too. We see Charlie being tortured by the angels for information about the rebels and their base and stuff like that. And this Charlie is just as feisty as our Charlie was. She won't give up. She won't betray her friends, and she's hit unconscious. She's ordered. Her death is ordered by the angels. We see Gabriel finally taking back his grace, and Asmodeus calls Sam on the phone, okay, and tells Sam that he has 10 minutes to turn Gabriel over to them, or he's going to break in the bunker and take Gabriel, and it's not going to be a good thing for anybody. And Sam is basically like, fuck off, you know. Lucifer, back in heaven, is talking about how his whole thing is that he's decided, his plan is that he wants to get Jack back, so he can combine his power with Jack's and reshape the world into an image that he wants, where, in other words, an image where everyone's worshiping him. Because Lucifer is all about me, me, me. It only matters what I think, I want, I feel. And Anael has had it. And also finds out that Lucifer, the whole thing Lucifer said about being able to make new angels and giving angels their wings back, yeah, that was a lie. The devil lied. Wow. You know, gosh, I mean, that whole Prince of Lies title, you know, okay, anyway. Anael then proceeds to go off on Lucifer, and gets a little too snarky to the point where Lucifer grabs her by the face and pretty much almost wrings her neck while she's staring into his eyes, which have gone very angry red. And he finally lets her go, and you kind of have to wonder when she was staring into his eyes if he was showing her his real face. She recovers quickly, though, and tells him that now he's lost her as well, and she leaves. Dean and Ketch find this place called the Silo, obviously a prisoner camp, and Charlie is dragged out to be killed in public via an angel with a sword. They're going to chop her head off. Dean and Ketch storm the Silo with guns a-blazing and grenades a-blowing, and manage to rescue Charlie, although the head angel manages to leave. Dean and Ketch manage to mow down quite a number of angels before that happens. Sam wards the bunker as much as possible, but as it turns out, the lights go out. The auxiliaries come on in red. When Castiel and Sam go to one of the main rooms, they leave Gabriel back in his room. They're attacked by demons. They manage to kill them, but Asmodeus pins them up against a wall using his powers, which are obviously more powerful than Castiel right now because of the angel grace he's been mainlining. And Gabriel is brought out in the arms, being held by an arm by two demons, and the fear on his face when he sees Asmodeus is just like, oh my gosh. Asmodeus starts to torture Sam and Castiel as he tells the demons to take Gabriel back. And that gives Gabriel the strength to overpower his captors and fling them over the railing to their deaths, I'm assuming. And Gabriel is himself again. His clothes are still torn up and everything, but he's clean. And he looks at Asmodeus, and he is pissed. And it's very easy for us to always think of Gabriel as kind of the trickster, the goofy guy, the smart mouth, the whole thing. But when we see Gabriel standing there in the shadow and we see his wings in the background, it's very easy to go, okay, he's terrifying me now. Asmodeus tries to throw a bolt of power at him to incapacitate him, and Gabriel just flings it away. And Gabriel shows his true power by burning Asmodeus alive. It was awesome. Back in the Apocalypse universe, Dean and Ketch are taking Charlie to the portal, and they're talking. Dean's telling her about his Charlie and how she liked chicks, and Charlie's like, oh, I like her, which I was like, that's cool. Sam asks Gabriel to stay and help with the fight, and Gabriel's like, no. He says, no, I'm not staying for this. And Sam pleads with him, if Michael shows up, it's going to end everything. Gabriel's response to that was the last time the world was going to end, he put his money on the Winchesters, and he thinks they can pull it off another time. Castiel, meanwhile, actually sounds pissed. He's like, no, you cannot turn your back on your father's creation. To which Gabriel's response is, Castiel, my father turned his back on his creation. Guess it just runs in the family. And with a flutter of wings, Gabriel's gone. The team in Apocalypse World has reached the portal, and Dean wants to go through, but Charlie says she's staying behind, and so is Ketch. Ketch tells Dean to go through the portal, come back with reinforcements, and angels wind up showing up just as Dean jumps through the portal and both sides open fire on each other. Dean appears back in the Batcave, and he and Sam manage to catch each other up about Gabriel and what's going on in the other universe and Charlie being alive over there and all this stuff like that. And Gabriel, the whole thing now, Dean's all like, okay, well, let's get going with this. And Sam and Cass have to tell Dean Gabriel left. And they don't have his grace because they had to use his grace to heal him. Dean, needless to say, is livid. Doing Dean's usual yelling, throwing stuff when he's angry. And some people said, oh, well, he was yelling at Sam and Cass. I'm like, no, he wasn't. He was just yelling because that's how Dean deals with shit. And Castiel tells him that they'll find Gabriel, and Dean says that they better. And the episode ends. Oh, wow. This had so much going on. It was such a great episode. Absolutely loved it. Bring 'em Back Alive gets 4.5 bouquets from me. Richard Speight Jr., it is so awesome to have you back. I hope we'll see you again. I missed you. I missed you. I missed Gabriel. I can't, well, besides the fact that, like I said, I think my dad was a trickster, and that may have been you. It may have been another trickster. I don't know. It would explain a lot. But, I thought this episode was amazing. Absolutely kicked ass. This coming week's episode, Funeralia, I think is how it's pronounced. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. We know that Rowena's back, and we know that Sam and Dean have had a shadow for a little while in the form of a Reaper who was assigned to follow them by death. For what purpose? We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Okay, that, cats and kittens, wraps up another episode of Platinum Rose's Garden. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you will like, share, and subscribe my show, as through all of the various interweb ways you can do that. I also hope you will check out the other shows that are part of our little family here, our little island of misfit toys. I have another solo show called Ring Around the Rosie over at ringaroundtherosie.net. That's my wrestling podcast. I have a show that I do, 2 shows that me and TC do together. TC is my husband and a great guy. They would include Subject Cinema over at subjectcinema.com and Front Row 5 and 10. Subject Cinema is our movie podcast. Front Row 5 and 10 is our list show. And they're really fun, and I hope you enjoy them as well. TC has a solo show called Catastrophe Vortex, which is his look at disaster movies. And he also has 2 mini shows, Tuesday Digidex and 3-Day Weekend, which are his looks at what's coming out on movies and DVD and on demand, so you can get an idea of how to plan your week when it comes to entertainment stuff. There's also Cavebabble from Eric and Valerie Lyon and Comic Grotto with Aunt B and Pee Wee. You can check them out as part of our little happy group. And there's also Manhattan Hammerdown, which is our 10-year anniversary special, I suppose you could put it. It's a dramatic piece that we were all involved with for the 10th anniversary of the release of the movie Cloverfield. It's a real labor of love. It came out super cool, and I hope you will check it out. So, this is Platinum Rose Lady signing off for another week, reminding you also that if you'd like to get in touch with me, platinumroselle@yahoo.com, with PRG in the header, and I know you want me to read it on the air. And I am out of here for another week, reminding you to love the ones you hug the ones you love, and take some time to stop and smell the roses. See you around. Bye.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNRNetworks.